Hey, what's going on, guys? Rago here from Kite. So I'm just wrapping up my week hangout here down with Kite in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And we've had a lot of opportunities to try out the North gear. They're a North affiliated kiteboarding school down here. So needless to say, there's been a lot of different kites and toys to play with. And the other day I had the unique chance to try out the mono. So I thought it would be kind of fun to do a comparison video for some of the different lightwind kites. Now, I myself, up until now, have preferred kites like the Juice or the Contra for my lightwind kite, but Angel here actually prefers the mono.
For me, the mono is a great kite for light wind conditions because it's very light. It's a one strut kite, and when we have like around 8 knots, we can do lessons with this kite with a 15 mono. Also, our students are able to ride, and also for foiling, it's a very good weapon. It's a good choice for going in those days that the wind is not that strong.
Very true, yeah, there's a lot of applications to the mono. So anyway, this week I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a video on the mono versus the Juice. So let's get to it. So this week I thought I would try something a little bit different, and rather than film this in our studio, we're going to be filming just in my office here today. And I'm just kind of getting myself ready to try and break away and do more of these videos on location, on the beach, and in different places. And we're just going to get the habit going. So hopefully the audio's up to par for you guys this week. And if not, just let me know in the comments here. So this week we're going to be comparing two kites that really fall into two different categories. The North Juice versus the North Mono. Now the North Juice is North's go-to freeride and lightwind kite, while the Mono is their freeride and foil kite. Now with all that said, while these kites are built for different reasons, they do have a lot of crossover applications. And normally, as I mentioned, I often gravitate towards the North Juice for my lightwind sessions, while Angel, on the other hand, usually uses the Mono for when he's riding and as well when he's teaching his students. And after having put some time in on that kite, I completely understand his logic here. So let's get started with the North Juice. With the North Juice, you can expect many of the same characteristics that you could get from any standard performance all-around freeride kite. And on that note of lightwind kites, if you haven't tried any of the modern lightwind kites in say the last 4 or 5 years, you're really missing out. In 2011, you probably couldn't have convinced me to get out anything larger than a 12 or a 14 meter, mostly because they just weren't that efficient and frankly they weren't that fun. But more often than not now in the last few years, I find myself riding 15 meters and up, and that's because we've had a lot of lightwind days where I live. And as well, I've just discovered how much fun it can really be, and with how the gear has really progressed, it makes a huge difference. So getting back on point here, coming back to the Juice, you can expect a lot of the same characteristics from many lightwind kites. Namely, it's going to have a strong forward pull, lots of grunt, and a delayed feel in contrast to any 12 meter, and loads of power. So in the last few years working here, I've had the opportunity to extensively test all of our lightwind kites that we carry here, and I'm always surprised by the sheer power of the Juice. At 175 with a lot of the lightwind kites, I often opt for the 17 meters, but with the Juice, more often than not, I find myself going for the 15 meter. And with the North Juice, I find that the 18 is more often than not just a bit too much for myself to handle. So regarding performance with the Juice, like I said, you can get a lot of the benefits that you would expect from performance freeride kites. And in some ways, it reminds me of the feel that you might get from like a Neo or even an Evo in the North's lineup. And with that said, the Juice, it's very much a pull and go kite. So jumping is near effortless. The kite's characterized by big, lofty jumps and a softer descent. So the biggest difference that you're going to notice with the Juice is an attribute that's actually common with all lightwind kites, and it's just going to have a stronger forward pull and a more delayed feel. So what about the Mono? Well, to tell you the truth, when I first heard about single strut kites and strutless kites in general, I was skeptical to say the least. That is until I tried them, and the same could be said when I tried the Mono. If you were to blindfold me, I doubt that I could tell you that this was a single strut kite just in regards to, the stability and the performance. But the first thing that really stood out to me was the direct steering impulse of this kite. So surprisingly light and surprisingly fast. Not light bar pressure, actually heavier bar pressure, but the main advantages when opting for a kite like this is how incredibly light the Mono is, so you can get the 15 out in extremely light winds. In contrast with kites like the Juice or any lightwind kite for that matter, once you get into the subpar winds, those kites are often just a bit too heavy to make them work. So with the Mono, the pull is very consistent, and with the direct steering impulse, it's really easy to generate a lot of speed and a lot of power from this kite very quickly. And that's the first major point to really consider between these two kites. You know, with that juice, it's going to have a more delayed steering impulse, meaning in lighter winds, you'll have to be a bit more preemptive when steering the kite. For inexperienced riders, this can create a problem as they're learning to accommodate for that delay and just create kind of a more inconsistent ride. On the other hand, the juice does perform a bit better across the board, particularly regarding jumping, and this really comes into play when the wind gets a little bit stronger. It's really important to remember that these kites are built for different reasons, and you just need to ask yourself what's important to you when you're looking for a kite to get you out in light wind conditions. So like I said, with the juice, it's going to be a more refined kite, kind of have a more familiar feel, and it's going to perform better on the higher end of the spectrum. Whereas with the mono, it's going to be a more effective light wind tool, but not as high performance across the board as a performance freeride kite. That said, due to its weight, you will be able to get the mono out in less wind than the juice. So with the mono, right out of the gate, you can really tell why foil boarders would love this kite with its direct feel and fast turning speed and just the attributes of this kite. And I know I mentioned that I personally find the juice to be more performance and well-rounded. That doesn't mean that the mono is not a fun kite. Actually, as a matter of fact, I found it to be an incredibly fun kite. And the only time that really came into play for me is when the wind got a bit stronger. And what happens is with the kites like the mono or any single strut kite for that matter, because it does have less struts, I don't think that they're just quite built to perform when you're having, more inconsistent or stronger winds. And as well, because it is so direct and fast, you are able to build up speed, and sometimes you build up so much speed that it's almost hard to keep that edge and lock it in for jumping. You might be skipping across the water a little bit. These kites do get overpowered, that can happen. And as well, I think just with the simplicity of the design, they're not quite made to, handle those stronger winds when it does get a bit gustier. Riders who prefer a more direct feel and a faster kite could consider this as a light wind option. For example, Angel, he rides in North Vegas as his normal kite, and he opts for the mono in light wind conditions. So between these two kites, which one's a better light wind tool? Well, that completely comes down to personal preference. The mono is going to be faster, lighter, more direct, effective in the sub 10 knot winds, but it can lose some efficacy when the wind picks up on you. While the juice, it's going to be more familiar, handle stronger winds with more refinement, have a more delayed feel, and operate much like most high performance kites. So riders who are looking to progress in lighter winds should really give both of these kites a try. In the last few years, I've really come to appreciate my light wind sessions, even more so than the stronger sessions. And I know a lot of riders out there really love to be lit up all the time and riding on their smaller kites, and they always want to be that small, fast kite. But there's something to be said about getting up at dawn or sneaking out for a sunset session and just that marginal wind with your friends. And there's not as many riders out. The water is glass, the light is soft, and you can just learn so many more tricks when you're riding in lighter wind, and then take that back to the stronger winds as you progress. So it does make for a different session, and it can be frustrating at first, crossing over. If you're just used to riding like a 10 meter or a 12 meter as your biggest kite, and then all of a sudden you're crossing over to a bigger kite, and there's more delay, and you're just not used to riding in lighter winds, it can be frustrating. But it's really more liberating, and I've actually come to favor my light wind sessions over just about everything else, just because of how easy it is to progress and how fun they can really be, and the lack of people on the water. Hey guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Like I always say, this series is an open forum, and with that said, I haven't put nearly as much time in on the mono as I have the juice. So, if you are currently flying the mono, or any single strut kite for that matter, feel free to chime in and give us your input. Let us know what the experience has been like for you. What do you like about the kite? What do you not like about the kite? And the same could be said for anybody who's riding the juice. Let us know what your experience has been like. What have you noticed about the kite? And just tell us your story. And between these two kites, personally, I really enjoy them both, and while I have always gravitated towards the juice, I could certainly see myself putting a lot more sessions in the mono, and I know that we've got one laying around in our demo area that I'm going to be trying out quite a bit more this spring when the lighter winds come back. So with that said, when the lighter winds do come in the spring here, I do think I'm going to make a point to sneak out with all of our light wind kites and get some footage and just get some reviews going for you guys. Light wind kites, light wind days, they really are some of my bread and butter sessions. And my good buddy Blake Olson, I think he could attest to this as well. He really likes to get out in all conditions, including light wind conditions. So that'll be fun just to dive into the light wind kites and get into the nitty-gritty details between those. But anyway, getting back on point here. If you guys found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next Wednesday.